What is going on, folks? It is Steiner here with another episode of Secondhand Talent. Thanks, as always, to Luke Chu for the lovely desk candy, and thank you to Mark Spusta for the art. And we have with us here, without further ado, the owner of Drifter Merch, Lorrie Griggs. Lorrie, thank you so much for being a part of the show.
Thanks for having me on.
I'm really happy to have you on here, and before we move on, I got to ask you, the first time you heard the name Secondhand Talent, what came to mind?
I thought you were a booking agency.
For what?
I don't know, artists. For musicians.
It seems so like, I feel like, as a lapsed comedian, I feel like there's a joke in there somewhere about like how you would intentionally brand yourself as like not the best when it comes to that particular category. But that's
I think it's funny.
well, I'm glad. No, I love it. What I love about that question the most is that over 100 episodes at this point, and I have never gotten the same answer.
That makes sense.
So that's a fun one to hear, because just like every other one, it's one I've never heard before. Well,
I can say the same thing about my company as well. People always have one idea of where Drifter came from, and it's never the right one.
I have several guesses, and we'll get into that in a moment. And as we alluded to by the name, folks, it's Drifter Merch. I tried to merch myself up here a little bit. I'm wearing one of our friend Mark Spusta's shirts from the Trey Anastasio band shows in Chicago a few years ago. The fish hat from, I think this is the hat for my first show.
Wow.
In 2009. Somehow it's still here. Some work by our friend Ryan Kerrigan. Go check him out. Love you, Ryan. Tried to merchify it up here because we're talking to the Madam of Merch over here, who's got folks, check it out, driftermerch.com. The links are going to be in the description, but there's something for everyone. And before we get to what those things are, I do want to ask, where do I see behind you, my eyes keep drifting up to the screen because I haven't placed it perfectly because, Secondhand Talent, because you've got so many fabulous posters around you. Clearly, music has had a massive impact on your life. And I'd love to know how that began. Like, when did you first realize that you had this passion for music and media?
Well, it's kind of interesting. I'm old, so it's been a long time that I've went to see music live, that kind of thing. Back in high school, my brother kind of got me into the classic rock era, and we went and saw Rush a lot. That was kind of, my intro into live music. We just got tickets for their reunion tour as well. But really, I've been seeing music since college. I went to Alabama, and it was like, all the big jam bands came through the South, and they were always at the college towns. Back then, they were playing the fraternities and everything when they were smaller. But that's sort of really where I got into, the live music deal. And then I moved to Atlanta after college, and, everything came through Atlanta. So we were always going to see music. And now I'm based in Charleston. I went to 3 concerts yesterday. It's just, always surrounded by music. It's fun. Good to see people, hear some music. It just brings people together.
So what are some of the first, or what are some of your formative concerts? Let's put it that way. Some of the first music experiences you had that were like, oh yeah, this is something for me. Like, this is something that I'm going to be doing 3 times a day.
Well, I'll tell you my first concert is kind of random. And it was James Taylor at the Dean Dome in Chapel Hill. And it was like a school-sponsored event that we went with the school. And it was such a slow concert. And we were like, all like kind of looking around, and we're like, is this what concerts are? Like, it was boring, but it was good music, but it was not like live and
I can imagine when you're 16, Carolina on My Mind is probably not what you want. I can empathize with that.
Yeah. So, it was really, again, in the early 90s in college. going to see, I mean, Fish and Panic and Blues Traveler at that time. And geez, I mean, a lot of them. Indecision was big back then. The Grapes were some of the bands that we were seeing.
Hell
The other
yeah.
people,
Were you
you
like,
might not know who some of those are.
were you like, I mean, our listeners or readers or viewers might not, but I actually do. The Grapes. That was, I mean, you saw my reaction when that's a name that I haven't heard. I don't think they've ever been mentioned on this show. So shout out to the
Uh,
Grapes. What a band.
yeah, and I also grew up in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, and they had a cool bar called Ziggy's, and a lot of people are well familiar with Ziggy's, and they had the live music coming through. I mean, we saw so many big bands now there at this little, joint. It's a small little place,
So
but
I'm imagining from the way you're describing it that this is roughly around like the Horde tour era, like the early
a little
90s.
bit before, but yeah.
So that's that's first of all, it's awesome to have been like to have that be like your major entry into the live music scene around all that amazing music. And for folks who aren't familiar, the Horde tour was comprised of bands like Blues Traveler, God Street Wine, Fish, Widespread Panic, and all these others, and they would tour as a unit, and it was it's just not something that really happens anymore. It was a special time to be around live music.
It really was, and I think that was, like, probably in the mid-90s, because I feel like that was after when I was in Atlanta after college when we were going to that.
Yeah, I think 92 was the first Horde tour, and then it only went through I think 98 or so. So
Okay, yeah, that sounds
somewhere
about right.
somewhere in that time frame. But regardless, those bands were all around for the decade prior to it. And I mean, what a great like bedrock list. I mean, those are like all bands that I still go see today for the most part. And I mean, what a
But, yeah, and we
great
can't forget Colonel Bruce Hampton in there, as well.
the
And
long live the music of the Aquarium Rescue Unit.
yeah,
Absolutely.
we would see him in Atlanta just, around town all the time, just at the gas station or whatever, and we'd be like, "Oh my god, that's Colonel Bruce," like, and he's in his, like, beat up old car, scratching lotto tickets, and we're like, "That dude is a mastermind of music." It's
He
kinda funny.
really, I mean, and that's it's definitely one of the things that I know I missed out on. There aren't many performers or artists that I feel like, I mean, obviously Jerry Garcia is one of them, who I wish I could have seen. Um, but one of the very few I mean, besides for Jerry and Frank Zappa, I mean, Bruce Hampton is right up there in
I
the
can't
top
even believe I
three.
didn't mention the Dead and all those when I was listing out bands.
I mean,
I saw
yeah.
Jerry once.
Oh, when was that? Out of curiosity.
Oh, same time, early 90s, and towards the end. Yeah.
Allegedly. No, but it is true though that he is one of the top three musicians that I wish I could have seen. So I mean, like I said before, what a time to be in and around live music. And were you making merch at that point? Were you
No,
into
no,
art
and
at all, or
I
were you just a fan?
no, not at all. I was just a fan. Um, Drifter Merch started coming up on 10 years in January. So this was 30 years ago. So no, I was just a fan going to see music, and we had a whole crew that all loved live music, and we, do all that. We went to the first and second Bonnaroo, that kind of thing, and um, went to did all the festivals, did all everything, and ran around, and now do a little bit of it, not like back then, pre kids and
Listen,
everything.
I resemble that remark, and it's also let's just briefly, because I know you mentioned this off air when we were talking before the interview. But what was your career in between that time in Drifter merch? Because I thought
Okay,
that was
so
very interesting.
when I graduated from college, I moved to Atlanta because I got a job with CNN, and I worked in news production for 15 years, doing behind the scenes, in the live control room during the broadcast, and everything. And it was interesting because I got to watch the world unfold, and we had breaking news and all the time, and it was just live and exciting and all this stuff. And but I worked crazy hours, crazy days. But the one benefit of that was we got a lot of vacation. So when I was there, I started with 4 weeks vacation. And when I left there, I left with 8.5 weeks vacation. I did work Christmas and holidays and that type of thing, but that allowed me to be able to go, you know, see shows and everything. I took more Thursdays than Mondays than I took full weeks, but we would go see, that's how I could go see a lot of music.
That's wild, though. I mean, like, because that career pinpoint right there, I mean, that is really just about the advent of live television and the 24-hour news cycle, like as we know it today. It was just really beginning right around that time, or was it maybe a few years
It
in?
was like probably 10 years in, but
I mean, that's still a few years to me, but at that, like,
yeah.
I'm thinking back, because I remember before, we had, 24-hour news channels or anything like that. Obviously, I understood what breaking news was, but there was a shift even in my lifetime to, the version of live news as we know it today. I was wondering if you could speak to that a little bit and what that shift was like as, the internet continued to grow and gain steam, and how that affected your career insofar as from a live, like really live production aspect.
Well, I mean, it was kind of different. I mean, I wasn't a big news junkie. I wasn't into the news. I really wanted to be in entertainment more so. And I just kind of ended up in news because I got the job there and it was exciting. But, the pay wasn't great and the hours were tough. A lot of times a lot of times my friends would be out and I'd be, you know, working a show late at night, or whatever. But yeah, I mean, things did change. And I mean, the technology changed. One of my jobs was I used to do all the fonts and graphics and animations on the air. I'd be the one like putting them on the screen, running the ticker and that kind of thing. And we used to actually type everything in manually. Like we'd get scripts that I'd be typing during a show, and then it all became kind of automated. So, I mean, things changed in that regard. I mean, the ticker wasn't there in the beginning, and then you have all this news coming at you, in every different direction. So it's interesting.
That's wild to think. When I think about my interview last season with Dave Eckenberg, who a little bit before that time, but worked to reinvent the Chiron editing process for credit rolls,
Yep.
and how instrumental he was in that. Highly recommend, folks, if you're interested in TV editing, go ahead and check out that interview. What a wild time to just be a part of all that, and to not be a news junk. So you were really just kind of like, hey, this is my job. What made you step out to you mentioned you were coming up on 10 years at the time of this taping of Drifter merch. Was this something that you decided to start during your career, or was this a post-career
Well,
move?
so I had another business before Drifter Merch. When I was working at CNN, I worked a lot of weekends, so I would have days off during the week. And I started freelancing for an advertising marketing company. And I didn't like the way they ran their company. And I'd already kind of made all the contacts. And so I was like, well, why don't I just start my own company? A lot of my friends had businesses. So I started doing marketing for my friends' businesses to get, you know, experience and everything. And so I started out as a media buyer, buying ad time and that kind of thing, and then progressed into doing PR because it tied in with the marketing. And I was doing this on the side. So, I'd roll into work at 4:30 in the morning and be emailing my clients as soon as I got in there, like, wow, you're up early. And they knew I worked at CNN, but they thought I kind of freelanced at CNN. They didn't know that the advertising was my side business at the time. And so it was kind of interesting. So I did that like I did both CNN and the advertising business for about 5 years. And then when I left CNN, I did the marketing full time, and I was still free. Then I was freelancing at CNN. And then finally it got to be too much. And I was just like, okay, I'm done over there. And I focused on my marketing company. And I've had a marketing company for 24 years. So to get back around to your question about Drifter merch just kind of came up as a fluke. My late husband and I started it together, and I just was cleaning out his drawers one day, and because they wouldn't shut because he had so many t-shirts, and I kept pulling them out, and I'm like, some of them were raggedy and everything. And he was like, oh, that's my favorite shirt. Like, and I was like, oh, I made this for a show. And he had a friend that was a printer. And so he's like, oh, I always make shirts for shows to give them out to all my friends and whatever. And my marketing mind was like, these are awesome. You should start a website. And so within a year, we started with 3 designs and got it out there and started selling our designs. I mean, it was supposed to be just a side project for fun. And it ended up, turning into a full-on business that we, sell online. We sell at shows. We do custom for businesses, bands, schools, festivals, events, anybody who needs screen printing or embroidery. And, sell on Amazon, Etsy, and
But more
that kind of thing.
importantly, getting back to you mentioned kind of at the top, how you had always wanted to be in and around music. What was it? So this is a 2-part question. Part 1 is, when was the moment that, Drifter merch really kind of took off? Was there a particular item or design or moment when that happened? And then part 2, as a music lover, and just purely as at the end of the day, just a fan, what was it like all those years later to find yourself under a tent on lot, on Shakedown,
Yeah, I
for
mean,
a
it's just
show?
it's interesting because it's like, so many people know our company and know us now. And I'm like, wow, did I know some of these people back in the day? Like, when we were throwing late night parties after New Year's Eve in Atlanta in a warehouse and everything. And I'm like, I wonder if some of my customers were at my parties back then and that kind of thing. But no, it's kind of interesting. It wasn't really an aha moment. We were living in Jackson Hole at the time when we started our business. And it really took off more when we moved back to Charleston, where I live now. There was just more opportunities. We started doing local events and, just sort of selling t-shirts around town at different music events and that type of thing. And then that's how the custom came up. People were like, oh, your shirts are so soft. They feel so good. Can you do some of these for my business? And then my husband was like, yeah, I don't know why not. And so that's how the custom started. It was like, oh, well, we could start doing that. And so that became his Monday through Friday job. Like I was still doing my advertising and, I had my roles doing Drifter, but he had another job too. And then it was sort of like, he was doing his job still from Jackson Hole and he was working remotely. And we thought it was going to be like 3 months. They were going to, until they found someone else to take his position when we moved home. And it ended up being a year. And it was like the perfect time because they were like, okay, we've got to get someone in-house locally, and they finally got to that point. And it was like perfect timing. Our business was making good money. And then that just gave him the time to focus Monday through Friday on getting the sales orders and that kind of thing. So that was sort of, became a Monday through Friday job. And I mean, and it just kind of took off. I mean, there's not really an aha moment. You see people, it was, I guess when we would go to shows and you start seeing people in your shirts and we'd be like, oh my God, there's our shirt. Oh my God, there's someone wearing our stuff. Those were exciting moments too. I mean, for sure. Like you'd be like, I mean, there were 5 people at this show wearing our stuff. Like, so that makes you feel good for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like, the best feedback I can ever get, like, as a show host is, oh man, like, X, Y, or Z said something really awesome in this interview. Like, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I know, look, it feels good. It feels good when something that you created is like the feedback loop gets back to you, that it's out there in the wild. whether that's visually or from a sonic perspective or from a feedback perspective. So, but in your case, actually seeing it, in front of you, I mean, that's a pretty wild thing. And taking us to that second part of the question, having been that music fan and having done these crazy hours at CNN to then doing the marketing business, what was it like after the final transition to see yourself in this almost like realized position as
Well, it's interesting because it's kind of it's kind of different. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. We just sort of did it for fun, and then it became. I mean, I always would be like at shows. I'd go have lunch with some friends or whatever, and I'd be like, I got to go to work. That meant I had to go to the lot to start selling shirts, and they were like, "What do you mean you got to go to work?" And they're like, "That's not work." And it's more. It is a lot of work, but it's fun work.
Let's talk
And
a little bit
everyone
about it
says,
though. Because I've been on tour. Shout out to the Overhead View. Went on tour with my buddy there in 2016, and I mean, talk a little bit about what it's like. Just like having like being on Shakedown, because I think for most of our readers, listeners, and viewers, they may know what Shakedown is. They may have been on lot one or two times, but a lot of folks know. And just for anybody who doesn't know, Shakedown or the lot is a colloquial term for where vendors who create merchandise gather to sell their wares to the fans prior to the show. It could be for any given band. Strings, for Fish, for Widespread Panic, for Dave Matthews Band, you name it. If there's a big enough scene to support it, it'll be there. But talk a little bit about like what that's like, and what goes into actually having a place at Shakedown versus just being the type of person who walks up and down it.
Well, that's kind of funny because everyone's like, always asks, they're like, well, how did you get a spot in here? And we're like, oh, you just buy a parking spot, and they're like, really? And like, yeah. But I mean, it's changed. It's changed even since we've started doing it. A lot of venues now are running the Shakedown. Like some of them are capitalizing on it and, charging larger amounts to the vendors to be out there. But also a lot of vendors are starting to get there days before the show and like line up and to get the best spots and that type of thing. But yeah, I mean, it's typically, it varies per place when the lots open. Some will open at noon, some will open at 5. It just kind of depends on the place. You kind of go get your spot and then you set up and usually people come. I mean, I would say that most people come 2 hours before the show, and then leading up to the show. A lot of vendors are out there all day and stuff, so they like people to come by early.
Wildest thing you've seen on Shakedown?
There's so many things I could say. I mean,
if you had to pick a few, so I mean, like, but just to like,
it's an interesting experience.
I think it's worth just for a moment dwelling on that. I mean, it's chaos. It's so much.
I mean, if you went on tour.
Well, I mean, it's everything you said. It's being there early. It's making sure you get a spot. It's hauling out everything that you're traveling with, setting up the tent, setting up the table, making sure everything's staffed. I mean, making sure you're towards the exit as the encore starts to make sure, I mean, like, it's all of these
yeah, because you got to get back and sell after the show too.
Absolutely.
And everybody's like, what do you do with your stuff? And like, put it all back in the car, lock it up, and then go to the show and come back out. We leave our tents and tables out, but yeah.
Has there ever been an experience that you've had where that's gone wrong for you?
Yeah. I don't want to go into much detail, but yeah. Oh, for sure.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Fair enough.
Sure.
That's fair. Because it's again, getting back to the nature of the place. It's chaotic. There's Allegedly a lot of things happening and a lot of alleged things being used by a lot of people, and it can get wild. And I mean, I only remember from my experience as a vendor on lot, just like kind of trying to figure out. I remember the first day for me, like I was trying to figure out, how do I keep an eye on all the chaos and do my job, and like
I
not
mean,
just get
totally.
stuck people watching.
Totally. I mean, it's interesting. And it gets so crazy right before the shows too, like that hour before the show. And it's like, we've been down in St. Augustine as a perfect example. And it's one of the better lots because it's right by the entrance. It's right by the box office. So everyone really comes by on their way in. And it's one of the busiest lots. And I always tell people, I'm like, I could use 5 people helping me. I mean, we always have friends hanging out in our tent, and I'm like, y'all, if you see I'm busy, come on up and help me. Like, because it gets crazy from that perspective. And part of it is what you're saying, like just making sure people aren't grabbing your stuff and walking off too. And making sure the payments go through.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm like, can I see your Venmo? And they're like, yeah, it went through. And I'm like, no, I gotta see it.
But I need the
And I'm
receipt
like, it's
though.
not you, it's me.
But I need the
Sometimes
receipt
people,
though. Well, but that's a valid point, and I think it's worth noting that yes, you, the fan, the purchaser, you may have the best of intentions and be an amazing person, but things have happened, and every, all the rules we implement, on Shakedown are for a reason. And there is also just this kind of mutual understanding that, or there should be. I think that vibe was there when I was around, but I'm curious if it
yeah,
still
I mean,
is, that vendors have each other's backs.
right. But yeah, no, I mean, yeah, with the transactions, which was so funny about that is like, numerous times people are like, yeah, I paid, and they'll show it to me, and I'm like, oh no, you got to put in the last 4 digits of my phone number, hit pay without confirming. And they're not doing it intentionally. It's the same thing. There's so many clicks, and they're just walking away. And I mean, I've gotten payments the next day and a message saying, I'm so sorry it didn't go through. When I opened it up, it was still there. I'm like, wow, you're honest.
And
So
there's definitely those people out there who are gonna look at it and be like, oh yeah, I was allegedly doing this the other day and don't remember making this purchase, but clearly I did
oh
because I
yeah,
have this item. And also that is a fair point, that like, yeah, if I'm putting myself in the mindset of where I was at about 10 years ago in my life before a fish show on lot, I probably wasn't double checking to make sure that the PayPal transaction went through or the Venmo transaction went through. Because I knew, I was like, I know I'm doing it. It's being done. I could see it with the eyes, and I'm doing it with the fingers, and I don't give it a
yeah,
second. And the
lot of
vendor's
shaking
like,
hands in the lot.
no. And the vendor in the
Yeah.
back just, no.
And some other vendors have told me, that they're just like, it's crazy. Like people cancel their payments after they walk away with the merchandise and that type of stuff. Oh yeah,
See, now
and it's
that's
just like,
just that's
really?
just that's just shitty behavior, folks. That's
I
just
know.
shit.
And then
That's just
everybody comes wanting a deal. How many for 3? How many 2 for 3? Whatever. I'm
three for
like,
20,
if
three
the
for 20,
price
no
is the
deals.
price.
3 for 20, no deals. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, that's what we always say. We're like,
Yeah, that's
we
the
double it and say, yeah, 2 for whatever.
yeah. No,
But I mean,
the price is what it is. It is what it is for a reason.
yeah. But I mean, if someone does buy a good amount, they will give them a little deal. But
Sure.
anytime we give a deal, it's never enough.
Well, I think that, and I talked to, earlier in the season, Mark Spusta, about this. One of the things that he likes to do with his orders is like slip a little extra, mini or micro print or a sticker in with his prints. Just so it's like a little fun extra for folks to have when they open up his packages. I feel like any brand, any merch brand that I've ever come across on lot or on Shakedown that I've wound up purchasing something from outside of the show's setting have
Mhm.
always included something extra. If it's a pin, if it's a sticker, if it's something
Yeah, we
like
always put stickers, and people love that.
people because it really means no, it really means a lot. It goes a long way. That little bit of acknowledgement. And here's like, thanks for the effort. We appreciate you following us. Like it as the buyer here, like I like those things mean a lot to the average consumer, that consideration.
Yeah, we actually put in, like, people trade stickers at shows and stuff, and we always save them, and that's where well, I mean, I keep a few of them when they're super cool, but a lot of the traded stickers go back in the packages, and then we always tell people that, and they're like, "Oh, we'll take some more if you're going to be spreading it, getting it out. We just want our stickers out there." They're like, "Yeah, put them in your packages." So that's definitely cool. And, kind of to what you're saying is like, it's not, people don't understand that sometimes it's like, you don't even have to come purchase. It's like, you could share a post, you can like a comment, like and comment that supports the small business as well. And that, like you said, when you're talking about the podcast, like if someone shares your podcast, you're like, oh my God, that's awesome. Like they liked it enough to share it. But that helps spread the word too. It's grassroots and organic.
It's interesting. I never or rarely in the show do I say, like, subscribe, comment. And folks, that stuff really does help. It really does. Please do that. Subscribe, like the post, share it with a friend. Most importantly, share it with a friend because that word of mouth is everything. It really is what carries and propels small businesses and brands forward into the future.
Absolutely. I mean, I could sit here and pitch, buy my product, but when someone else says it's great, people want to buy it more, obviously. But yeah, and I mean, the thing of it is the algorithms keep changing, with Google ads, Facebook ads, is Meta and all this thing, and it changes in the way that they get show people you're in your feed and who's coming through and that kind of thing. It's hard to navigate. I mean, as a marketer, I mean, I'm still, every time I read articles and it's like, oh, they changed this and you got to do this now and you got to do like, it's crazy. So if you don't have a marketing background, that is a great way to spread your word out too. Get a little street team, get a little ambassadors.
No, that was going to be my next question. Uh, how did having that marketing background, that marketing and advertising background, how did that inform the direction that Drifter Merch took to make it, kind of its own entity?
Well, I mean, we set it up as a business from the start. I mean, I guess we didn't initially when we had 3 designs, when we were just doing it for fun on the side. But once we decided it was going to be a business, we set it up as a full on business, and, had the website. A lot of people just sell on Etsy because it's easier. And I was like, no, we need our own website. We need to brand it. We need to do the search engine optimization. We need to do all the background part of it. Have, the Google page, have all the socials, not just Facebook, Instagram. We're on Twitter, LinkedIn, all of them, and that's just because I had the background to do it. And I mean, it took a long time to grow the following. And, my husband used to say, well, why aren't you doing PR for our business? And I would be like, well, it's harder to do it for your own business, pitching yourself to people instead of
Ain't that the
your
truth?
customers.
Yeah. Yeah, I know it.
Yeah, and
I
so
know it. Yeah.
it's funny now because now that he's passed away, I have a festival every year, and that's really when I do a lot of my pitching is for the festival and that type of thing, and end up doing interviews about Drifter Merch as well because it's more around that. So he would be so excited that I finally did PR for us and have gotten exposure in some interviews, like our Grateful Dad shirt was in a Fox News Christmas feature, and we had another shirt on a Valentine's post somewhere else. I mean, it's easier. It's easier when it's not your brand, but I also do see more opportunities because I'm looking for my brand. that way.
I mean, that's no notes, no notes. Getting back to your, you mentioned that, for your husband, this kind of became, his real 9 to 5. Talk a little bit about like what all exactly, he, actually, first of all, just sorry to back and forth, but
Oh, you're good.
touching on that first point. Gosh, isn't that the truth that it's so much harder to market yourself than it is someone? I mean, I haven't heard such a true statement in a while. We've been very fortunate with the growth we've had with the show in so far of, where we're at, and a massive thank you to all of our guests who have shared their interviews along the way, and shared it with their audiences, and to all of our listeners, viewers, and readers. Thank you from the bottom of my heart, because without you, this interview that I'm having right now wouldn't be possible. um and it is so much work. I mean, it really is. It is. It just is. And I don't say that in a way to bemoan it. I say it more so in a way to acknowledge, and just kind of try to get across the idea that, this stuff doesn't happen overnight. Towards the end of my teaching career, one other change I was alive long enough for was, at the beginning of my teaching career, when you walk into a classroom, how many students want to be a professional athlete? About 80% in any given classroom. What I've been teaching long enough to see in my lifetime is the just swapping out of athlete for influencer, and it being roughly the same ratio, and people thinking that it's just so easy to get that social media following and to get that traction. And this, now bringing it back to the question that I interrupted myself on, what you really need to have is a great product at the end of the day. And that brings me back to your husband. It made this, you said, his 9 to 5, as you put it, Monday through Friday. Talk a little bit about him, and what he brought to Drifter Merch, and the business itself.
He brought all the ideas. I mean, he was a music guy, and so he knew beyond the jam bands. Like, he loved the Allman Brothers, and Government Mule was one of his big bands. And every time we do one of those designs inspired by, all their old fans would call them bootlegs. You're ripping off the band. And so it killed him. He'd be like, man, I want to make some more of these type of shirts or that type of thing. And, and like, he loved Neil Young too. And like, every time Panic played a Neil Young song, he'd be like, sweet, we're doing another Neil Young. I could throw another Neil Young in there and all the Panic fans will buy it. So we would market it to the Panic fans, not the Neil Young fans. That kind of thing. But he always kind of came up with the ideas, and, he would want to do something with like Warren Zevon, Townes Van Zandt. He'd, go beyond, the jam type scene and just kind of have a little bit of everything. He'd be like, I have this idea. And so we're on Amazon, and that's what he, used to do. We'd be watching TV and he'd be on his computer. He's like, all right, I'm going to throw this design up on Amazon and, and see, and we just kind of, he would do that and like see what would sell and see what stuck. And that's sort of still how we test our designs before having, printing them and having inventory, because they do, direct to garment printing where they can do one-offs and that type of thing. And so they basically buy our design. I mean, they give us a design royalty when someone buys a shirt from there, and they print them and everything and send them out.
So you've got a white label drop ship. That makes so much sense now, how you're able because I was going to say, what a strategy to throw designs up on Amazon and see which ones gain traction. Like, but myself understanding some of the mechanisms of merch creation,
I understand how that's done, and we're not
Well,
going
I
to
know you just never know, like what someone's going to like and what. I mean, like
well,
you
right.
design something, you think it's going to be a hit, and it's like
Well, I was
crickets.
talking more so about in the ability to do what you did and put designs up and be able to sell things without making official product and
And a lot
settling
of
on a
people do
design.
that. A lot of
Yep.
like people who make stickers don't want to have inventory, and you don't make as much money, as if you had the inventory and you sell it yourself. But we use it as a marketing tool, but we also use it as a test. And like when my retire designs, I put them on Amazon. And then, because every time I retire something, somebody wants one. But the other thing with Amazon too is you can pick your colors. Like we usually do one color in a tank top and one color in a t-shirt. And people always want different colors, but it's an inventory nightmare to have multiple colors going in sizes, and you run out of this color and have plenty of this color left. So on Amazon, they have the ability to pick different colors. And then you can also pick a V-neck. You could get a hoodie. You can get a zip. So if you like a design and we only have it in a t-shirt and tank top, you can go on there and get that in different styles too.
And I think you just answered the question a little bit better, as well as about how your background in advertising augmented your business there. That is a genius strategy. I've
That's
been,
why we're on Etsy. I mean, people are like, "What's your Etsy?" And I'm like, I only have like 10 items on Etsy, and I'm just on Etsy because people shop for clothes there. I mean, people shop on Etsy, and
but
like
it
they
also
go look
gives you
for band
another. It
t-shirts.
also gives you another searchable result. I mean,
Yeah.
it goes deeper than that. But like, and
They take too much money out though, is
for all of
as opposed to
our,
having your own site.
that is true, allegedly. But for everybody who's listening or reading and not watching on YouTube, first of all, go ahead and subscribe on YouTube and take a look at the videos. But I was just kind of sitting there slack-jawed a little bit while I was listening, because in the most recent merch creation process that I was a part of, the only reason we were able to pull off what we did was because we had a white label producer that was able to create multiple types of packaging with multiple types of design, and it's not, it takes somebody with marketing skill and background to be able to use that as a business test model on Amazon, because to make yourself visible, period, on Amazon, is a feat. And then to sort through and find the ones you like. I think putting the retired ones back up on there is an incredible idea, to have that as a backup option. But, I mean, executing with Amazon, for example, and this is not an ad for Amazon, by the way, just so folks don't get it twisted.
People like the Prime and the free shipping, yeah.
But yeah, this is not an ad for Amazon whatsoever, unless they would like to pay me, in which case, Amazon, please email me at secondhandtalent@gmail.com. But the appeal there, I mean, if you can make it work, it works. I mean, like, I've never heard from someone who's actually been able to make that work, and I'm just
It's
impressed.
It's just another income stream. We don't make a lot of money from it. It's not one of our larger ways that we make money, but I also don't really market it on there. And on Amazon, it's interesting because we're always hitting up, the music fans, but on Amazon, it's interesting because they don't tell you who buys your product. People are always like, "Oh, I got this from you on Amazon," and I don't see any of the transactions in that regard. It just says one shirt and a medium sold or whatever. But random people buy our stuff not knowing it has to do with the jam band scene or whatever. If we have like a shirt that says grateful. And so, people who are grateful just buy it, so it's just, you're hitting different types of people that, may not know your product otherwise.
Opening yourself up to a completely new market, which again.
But I will have to say, I do want to throw this out there just so people are aware. that one-off printing is a different type of printing. It's not screen printing with ink. And people are always like, I got the shirt on Amazon, but all the ink's coming off. And I was like, well, call Amazon. But that it's a different type of printing, and that's how they can do the one-off printing. Whereas when you're screen printing, you have to do multiples to make it worth a while, the time for the setup and all that.
You're obviously going to be making some trade-offs and sacrifices in that kind of a relationship to make it work effectively. But as you said, the majority of the stuff comes from you directly, and I know this for a fact that you all use incredibly high quality material when it comes to, your own fulfillment station, and it's not like a drop ship. And speak on that a little bit, and what the influence was on making sure that you're using quality goods that people will come back.
And there's tons of different brands, and we just kind of not got stuck on the ones that we liked, but we just like Next Level and Canvas and as our primary. I mean, we do some Gildans, but that's just people want more boxy shirts, and the Next Level and Bella are more fitted, but they're the soft tees. And then you've got, I've got customers that are like, but I have a gut and everything. And I'm like, I can order 100% cotton for you. I can order comfort colors for you. I can special order it when I'm placing an order. But, that was what we wanted, was quality. And even when we're doing local events around here, people will be like, your shirts are so soft. I love them. I don't know what anything means on these shirts, but I love the quality. So yeah, that was important to us, and some people just have their preferences of what they want to use, and that
absolutely.
We went with what we like.
but that's super important, and to not just go with the good product, but to go with the consistency of maintaining the use of a good product and separating. It's just another way to me that I'm hearing of separating yourself as a brand from, an online shop, from, Amazon, etc. Like, yes, these designs could be made available for purchase on Amazon, but like if you're ordering from Drifter merch, like it's
yeah, and Amazon. I mean, no, exactly what you're saying. And the funny thing is, someone will send me a picture. I got this on Amazon, and I was like, will you send me the label? Like, cause they switch the types of shirts. Like, they have a standard t-shirt, and then they have a premium t-shirt, and they keep changing what types of shirts they use. And so, like, we don't even know like what's going out sometimes. And, and same thing is, they tend to make their designs larger than we do, and we can't really size them. And we'll be at a show and we'll be like, oh my God, they got that off Amazon. That logo's huge. Okay, we got to take that one off. Because you don't want it representing your brand either if it's not something you want.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, that honestly should have occurred to me, but didn't. That they would probably take liberties with production, but So yeah, so I mean, like, pros and cons. I mean, like really, like seriously, like really, like writing up the pluses and minuses list here. I mean, that wasn't even in consideration, like as far as like things I was thinking about. Wow.
Huh. Oh, I know, and I mean, a lot goes into it. Like, we used to put out way more when he was alive. We put out way more designs than I put out now, and it's just really inspiration. Like, he just was always thinking of ideas, and I'm like a mom and have another business, and like I've got so many balls in the air that I'm like, okay, I got to get a design up, and I'm like, okay, like I just did Panic in Savannah. I was like, no show shirt this time. I couldn't get it to happen. But lately, some other vendors are like, why don't you do show specific shirts? And we never did for a long time. And then I started. They were like, no, you should do them because you can make a lot more money, and like those sell out, on that run. And we're like, oh, okay, yeah, that's a good idea. And we've been doing reprints mostly of the show shirts for the show specific ones. And it's kind of cool. It's interesting. I mean, you talk to other vendors and you evolve, and, and I help vendors all the time, and I'm like, have you ever thought about doing this? And you should do this, and you should put it there. And they're like, well, could I call you sometime and talk to you about marketing my business? And I'm like, oh,
well, I was gonna ask. I mean, what has that been like? Kind of being, I mean, 10 years into Drifter merch, having the background you have, do you find yourself in this position of kind of like of an authority figure in the
No,
scene?
not at all. I'm no expert of anything. I mean, we winged it. I mean, we figured it out as we went along. I mean, there's no guidebook or anything, but I do put on day events for different shows, pre-show parties, and we have vendor markets in these pre-shows, and we've done them for Panic, Billy Strings, Goose, and Fish. Because I organize these markets, people do ask me a lot of questions. They're like, okay, it's my first time setting up. Like, what should I do with this or what should I do with that? And then we do like individual posts for each person coming to the market. And so I have to do like a marketing piece on each brand.
Absolutely.
And, they sometimes send me pictures and I'm like, I mean, do you have any pictures of your setup or your whole display? Or do you have a Facebook page I can tag? Like, that kind of thing. And a lot of people don't. So it's just, I've always helped brands build. So that's always been my business. So that's why, I do it that way. And people do ask me questions, but I'm happy to help. I mean, I asked older vendors the questions when I was coming up, before I'd done it. Like, what should we do with this or that? And I'm still not the expert. You see me in the lot and I have a sheet of paper scribbled down of everything that sells and everyone's like, that's how you keep your inventory? And I'm like, if I don't write it down, someone buys it on the website and I don't have one,
There you go.
And you're too busy to like take it off on your phone or on the tablet at the time. It's too busy, so we just kind of scribble it down on a piece of paper.
Well, what?
It works.
You do what works. Yes, thank you. If it works, you do it. You do what works. And again, folks, if you're just reading or listening and you're not watching on YouTube, I was just sitting there, just kind of like this for a while, with my the Monty Burns yes position, because I was fighting so hard to keep the intrusive thoughts inside, to be based on experiences that I've had, people I know, and things like all related to these things that you're saying, which all rings so true. It really, oh wow, that was really, really something. That's, and also I think I've probably got a bunch of friends who've been at some of your shows. I mean, it's a great thing to do. The rising tide lifts all ships. It's a great thing to be able to provide a platform for growing artists and growing, let alone give advice. But it's a great thing to be able to do for the industry.
And it's fun, and the customers love to come out during the day, and usually, because they're going back to their hotel room or have their car, they shop and they can take it home, and that sometimes in the lot people will be like, oh, I want to get something, but I don't want to take it to the show, that type of things. It's fun, and we usually have a band playing, and
I mean,
it's
I last actually. So, friend of the show, dearly departed, gone too soon, mutual friend of ours, Scotty Radfrd, incredible artist. He was on the show in season 4. Really just
some of our markets for sure.
Yeah. Sweetest
guy.
Really, 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 really just a great friend that I've known for a really long time. And the last time I saw him actually was at such an event at a fish show that I was working at Alpine Valley, and it was cool then to see that ecosystem manifest and take place, and all these folks that I've gotten to know over the years of seeing shows, like together under a roof, like in an actual space where people can come in during the day to shop before the show, where nobody's rushed, and we can actually talk. It was
Yeah, and people love to explore the city, and we usually have it at a brewery or somewhere, and have local food trucks and that type of thing. And so people are like, "Oh, it's fun to get out and have something to do during the day, and
it was it
not
was
get holed up in a hotel room."
it was my first experience of being on Shakedown, not on Shakedown, so to speak, and it'll forever hold a special place in my heart, but I mean, it is something because I think, Scotty was among many of those really gifted talents that are out there. I can think of so many, Brandy Michaels, just people who've been, fellow South Carolinian Caleb Williams. I mean, there's so many. I feel like if I start listing folks, I'm going to leave people out, and I don't want to do that. But having that been my primary experience to relate to, with what you're talking about, hosting at, on your, it really is, kind of magnificent in a way. The way the worlds reach and wrap around. And another interesting twist at the time of this taping, the episode coming up next week is with Turner May of the Sandbox channel, dedicated to the Mikey era of Widespread Panic's music. And yeah, it's really incredible in this journey how these things have become circuitous and come back around.
Yeah, no, I mean it's totally cool, and we always support a nonprofit as well, and that's huge. Conscious Alliance has been one of our ones we've done multiple times, but a lot of times we ask the venue, do they have a charity they work with locally that we can support and give back while we're in the town?
Love that. I mean, one of the great joys, and I say this as often as I can to anyone who will listen, one of the great joys that I've had as the host of the show is to bring on organizations like Mockingbird Foundation, like Backline, organizations that are doing really good stuff. And I always ask my guests if there's a charity that they want to highlight, if there's a cause that they want, to be donated for, to be included in the link to an episode. Not everyone gets back. Sometimes people do. But when they do, we include it because it's important to use whatever mechanisms we have at our means to raise awareness for organizations that are doing the really good work.
Absolutely. I mean, interestingly enough, it's kind of a side note. We did an event for the Goose shows here in Charleston, and their organization, they choose a local organization to give back to, and they chose Bridges of Hope in South Carolina, which is something I had never heard of. And interestingly enough, it was for the families who've lost someone, which hit far home, because then my daughter, 6 months later, my daughter joined a group at school from this organization that I'd never heard of before the Goose weekend. And I mean, I had to send them a letter, and I'm like, I found out about this. And so she's in a bereavement group at her school through this organization for losing her father. And it just really hit home because it was full circle. And, I partnered with Rising Tide Art Studio for that event. And, she was just like, wow, you never think that's going to be,
Caroline. Caroline's an incredible, also a friend of the show. She was great on the show as well. She's an absolutely wonderful human being and the perfect person to be around for an event. Or
especially Goose. She knows everything Goose.
Oh yeah, yes, indeed. I mean, but that is, yeah. I mean, hitting home, I think, is like we're leveling on understatement of the season right there. I mean, that's like, phew.
Well, yeah, you donate to different charities, and you know they're doing good, but when you actually see how it comes back around, it's really really fulfilling.
Yes, but absolutely, of course, and in addition to just the fact, the sheer fact that Mockingbird is a fan-run organization, I have friends who have benefited from grants that Mockingbird gave to their schools while they were attending school and learning music. Like, it's not hypothetical for me. But this is different. I mean, this is like, the layers of.
Well, I know, and I was just like, when I read more about the organization, I was like, I wish I'd known about this when he passed away. Like, there were tons of resources that we could have used and that type of thing. So,
What was the name of the organization again?
Bridges of Hope.
Bridges of Hope. We're gonna put their link in the description of this episode. So, yeah, absolutely. Because I often find that people discover that the resources are available once
After
the
the
moment
fact.
has passed in which they need them the most. And to raise awareness for something like Bridges of Hope or Backline, I bring up Backline and conversations almost every day. I think the work that they're doing, providing mental health support services to not just artists but their families as well, and with no cost barrier, is essential. And unfortunately, death is a part of life, and to have an organization that you heard about through your merch company that is now helping your daughter grieve through the loss of her father and your husband, I think that's something truly remarkable.
Oh yeah, I mean, it was just so cool. Yeah, actually.
Wow. But getting back to Drifter merch, I have my own theories about it. I will tell you that most prevalently today, and I know off camera before the interview, I think you'd said something to me along the lines of, a lot of folks theorize about where the name comes from and they're all wrong. Is that an accurate,
Yep.
somewhat semi-quote? Okay. All right. So I have two thoughts. One is from before this conversation, and one is from because we had this conversation. And I want you to tell me why I'm wrong and what the actual,
Okay.
what the reason is. Why is it called Drifter merch? So, I don't know why, but the song Drifter in the Dark has just been in my head all day. And do you ever walk alone? Do you ever walk alone like a drifter in the dark? And I was just like, I feel like, but then I was thinking about it, like, they're not that big into Ween, and that's a super niche song on their country album. I'm pretty sure. If I'm wrong, roast me in the comments. But leave a good review and like and subscribe. But after having this conversation, I want to say that it was either inspired in some other way by some other lyric or song, or that's what you were doing, was just drifting and going where the wind took you.
Okay, that's a good one, because the funny thing of it is it's a Neil Young song called Drifter, and it's not one of the most known. It's not one of the most known songs. But my only thing I cared about when naming the company was it had to be an easy name that people could remember. And we want to incorporate merch because it was going to be band inspired, and you think of the merch tent. So that's why the Drifter and the merch came in. But the funny thing is when we started doing like the shirts and the hats, everyone had a drifter story. They're like, oh, I'm a drifter. I go show to show, or I'm a fisherman. I drift in the water. My nickname's Drifter. I mean, it's crazy how many people had different reasons for their being a drifter, or they wanted the hat for that reason. That type of thing. So it is interesting, but
Yeah.
a lot of people have said that we need to kind of do our own private label of stuff. And I'm like, they're not going to sell as well as the jam band stuff, but like using other versions of Drifter, lyrics and such has been kind of in the back of the head, like a cool design with a little bit in there.
It's a relatable word, first of all. Especially, I mean, I'm giving myself a little pat on the back here for it being the name of a song, even though I didn't know it. But that was a good guess that it was influenced by a song or a lyric. But that is, it's such an interesting. I was an English teacher. I love words, and to be adrift, to drift through life. To drift from show to show, to drift through the crowd. Like, it has so many applications and so many uses and no fixed connotation.
Correct. And that was one of the reasons it popped up. And I'm sure Bert had another idea of his Neil Young archives of knowledge about the song and which album it was on and how it was played and this, that. But for me, it was more of that and being easy to remember as well.
Well, I think that's a perfect coupling right there, is that, like bringing the logic of the music behind it, and then, you bring in the understanding of marketing and that mechanism behind it, and kind of just bringing the two together. And that's, and boom, there you have it. I mean, but that's, so there were choices, and then you landed on this one, and this was like, hey, and yeah, it totally makes sense.
It's catchy and it's easy to remember.
Yeah. I mean,
my other business is Eskimo advertising, and people always remember it because it's like, just Eskimo, the name. They're like, oh, and that was my nickname in college. And I always liked to hear Quinn the Eskimo. But I was going to
say the mighty Quinn Photography, friend of the show, Chris Quinn. Yep.
And, and people always remembered it because it was catchy and easy to remember. So it was kind of in that regard. But yeah, a lot of people thought it was like Bert's nickname, Drifter. We have a customer who buys all our stuff, and his nickname's Drifter.
Everybody knows some. I feel like it's like that's like one of those things. Like, either everybody's been a drifter at some point in their life, or they all know somebody whose nickname is Drifter.
Absolutely.
Like, it's just one of those things. Get the drift?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, it's kind of cool. I'm glad you like that.
I love it. Are you kidding? It's phenomenal. Like, the beginning of my career was as a comedian and as a voice actor. Storytelling is my first great love. It's what I do. I write stories rather than jokes, and I pull the jokes out of them. And I have always had a special fondness in my place, or in my heart. In my place, special fondness in my heart for lyrics. Music has always been incredibly important to me, and as regular listeners, readers, and viewers of this show will know, I became a comedian to get into live music, and to be around it more. Playing an instrument is not a barrier for entry for being involved in the scene. And
agreed.
I just think it's great to just take the approach and to own it. And it's not something that I did with my own show, even though I apply song names and lyrics and things to just about everything. I did not do that with this show at all. So to hear it, it's just really cool to hear. We don't get to, we haven't had on the show yet many folks with their own independent merch businesses, but to me it was just really cool to hear that story, and I really hope everyone else enjoyed it as well. Are there any words you'd like to leave us with?
No, just go see live music. It'll free your soul. And go to driftermerch.com and pick up some cool music inspired goods.
And folks, you know that the link is going to be in the description of the episode. Thank you so much for being on the show. This was
my pleasure. Good conversation.
This was a wonderful, wonderful conversation. And folks, this is Steiner, and we will see you next week for another episode of Secondhand Talent. That's a podcast.
Nice.